Hello, this is Shane. I am back with another music update. This one I've been collecting for really closely for the last, I'd say, month. I think the last time I showed you guys a music update was about a month ago. So I have a lot to show you. A lot of different formats, a lot of CDs, a few cassettes, and a a lot of albums as usual. I also too want to get into doing a kind of, if I have the albums like together, every now and then I like to do an artist spotlight. I'm thinking about doing that like maybe towards the end of the video, or we'll put it someplace in the video. We'll see how I can get it in there. But I'd like to talk about one artist tonight and show some of his albums too, if I have time. I'm going to try to make some time somewhere in this video to do it. But let's get into it. So I got 4 cassettes, and the price of cassettes have been going up and up and up and up and up, and it's getting kind of, sorry, just put a little bit more padding. But it's kind of getting ridiculous, the price of cassettes. Whereas in like what used to be a dollar cassette now is $5. And so I bought some of these cassettes, and they were all like $5. And it's kind of like, if I want it bad enough on cassette, I guess I have to pay the price. But this is Steely Dan's Pretzel Logic on cassette. And like I said, I'm going to back it up a little bit here. Pretzel Logic on cassette. This is sort of like, I think maybe part of the problem I have with cassettes. And something like this should be $1, is now $5. I bought cassettes for $5 and I've kind of shook my head that I am, but anymore, that's kind of what these things are going to start being. They're going to get higher and higher in price. And as much as I want to whine and complain about it, if I want the cassette, I'll get it. This is an interesting album by Steely Dan. It's got Ricky Don't Lose That Number on here. Any Major Dude Will Tell You is on here. Charlie Freak, which is a cool song on here. Kind of jazzy, which they were kind of doing, kind of elegant in a way, but also strange, as only Steely Dan can get. This album now is going for like $20. So yeah. So just because I have so much stuff to show you, I can't really get in depth with these cassettes. This one is awesome. Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. Full Moon Fever, which I've had on cassette multiple times. This one now is going for $5 as well. I'm glad to have it. This is one thing I wouldn't mind having on cassette forever. This is probably the most listened to album of his, next to Damn the Torpedoes, and it is super good. So no problems with Mr. Petty here running down his dream. This has got all the big hits on it. Kind of jangly in parts, kind of mainstream kind of radio rock in parts, which I don't mind, and parts of it, like I said, kind of jangly. I mean, he does a cover of Feel a Whole Lot Better, which is an old Byrds song, which I love the Byrds too, so no complaints there. Tom Petty, Full Moon Fever. Pretty cool to have that. I remember having that on cassette when it came out. This one was $6, but it's the first 3 Rush albums, the Rush Archives. So I had this on an album. I think I sold it in my last record show. It's Caress of Steel, 2112, I believe, and Rush's self-titled album, all on one cassette. Classic early Rush, even before Neil Peart Rush, on here. So big time. This is going to take a long time to go through. It's just going to be a whole afternoon of listening to this, pounding out notes at work and progress notes at work while I'm listening to this. So pretty cool to have. Like I said, I want to spend more time on the albums. This was the most expensive cassette I've bought in quite some time, but I think it's kind of cool. I like the packaging on this. This is a anarcho band from England called anarcho punk band from England called Anthrax. And this is a pretty cool packaging. Now I see this kind of packaging up in Tampa, but not like at my local record store here in Bradenton. Um, it makes me want to move up there to Tampa. I just really love the stores up there. I have such a good time being up there. It's a lot of fun. GrowYourOwnRecords.com. I'm going to show you the inside of this before I start talking about the music on this per se. I'm on your face, I'm in your kiss. No, that's not the right band. That's not the right band. There's the lyrics here from the band Anthrax. Right here. Pretty cool. And here's the cassette it's in. And the album is called Surf's Out, before I forget. But the album is like in cassette single. But it's pretty cool. And on here, I think Anthrax has been around for a while, and I think they came out in the early 80s, I want to say, but this Surf's Out came out in 2021, so I think it's a newer recording from this band who's been together for quite some time, doing an anarcho sort of do-it-yourself. Narco punk, I just found out, which is basically like do-it-yourself punk that is anti-capitalism, veganism, all that shit in there. Well, not shit, but for some people, being a vegan is a way of life, and who am I to say that's wrong? I don't know. I don't really care, I guess. But yeah, I don't really care about that. Yeah, I always was like, when I met vegans, I would always be like, but don't you want some steak? Don't steak taste good? And they, just joking around with them if they're cool about it, But that t-shirt on, whatever. But yeah, this is Anthrax Surf's Out. Anthrax being the English punk band, not the American band. I'm going to have a lot of time because I'm just ripping through stuff today. These are all cassettes that I picked up from my local record store, and I'm just going to go kind of show them in succession. Some of these are worth $3. Towards the end, I have at least 5 sealed CDs. This is Tana Popo, and their album is called Tan Popo, and you can see the girls right there. And the album's called Tan Popo 1, and I think this is J-pop. If there's K-pop, I think this is the Japanese girls group doing pop music, and that's what I think this is. And I really find that something like this I find kind of interesting because, one, it's this K-pop stuff is a little bit more common, but maybe this specific record is not. So this might have some value. I don't know, but I believe it's like Japanese pop dance music. Tan Popo. Somebody will tell me if they heard of it. And the album was Tan Popo 1. I'd extend that out. Going back to New Orleans, Dr. John. I like a lot of his albums that have very colorful outfits on them. And this one is no different. Hold on, let me get. No different than the rest. Right here. This is a 1992 release. And this is going back to his roots of New Orleans style music, which he never really went that far away from, to be honest, but he always had colorful, some of his album covers are really colorful. And I like Dr. John, his music. I'm not buying every album, but look at that cover. Look how fucking awesome that cover is. He just had the coolest cover, so I decided, fuck it. I'm gonna get it. So yeah, 1992 release. I think it's more of that New Orleans style jazz that he did, but he had pop rock elements to the music too, I think. Yeah, pretty cool. Bing Bing Malmsteen. Yeah, we got some metal here. The collection. So 14 songs on the Polydor label. It's like this, but I'll put it this way. I'll put it up here so you can see the picture. Compilation of Ying Ming's hits. including the classic Black Star. I'll See the Light Tonight is a great song on here. Deja Vu. Judas. I'll See. I already said that. Far Behind the Sun. Of course, I think Liar is a classic song by him, but Black Star is gnarly. So, some metal guitar goodness here from Yngwie Malmsteen. So, yeah, I'll show that. Fuck yeah, I'll show that. This is, let me see, do I got these? Yeah. This is Harold Budd and the Cocteau Twins. And I've shown this before, so I'm not going to go over this too much. The Mooney and the Melodies, the Moon and the Melodies, which I've shown this before the vinyl. Well, now I have it on CD. So take this in for stock if you're a fan of either one of these. Harold Budd is an electronic composer. I want to say he worked with Brian Eno, and here he is doing like sort of laid back electronic ambient kind of stuff. And here is the Cocteau Twins kind of taking over center stage while he sits in the back, kind of. And there's enough of an arrangement on this where like you could tell his presence is on the album, but yet they kind of take over everything else. And it's kind of an interesting collaboration between two heavyweight giants in like electronic music, really. Or well, they were electronic, I would say, Cocteau Twins, but more guitar driven too. I mean, they obviously became more electronic as they went along, but yeah. So yeah, the Cocteau Twins, the Mood and the Melanie, the great Harold Budd, who I've had some stuff by Harold Budd in, and I can't really complain. There isn't much to this on the 4AD label. Put this back in here. I figured I'd show it again. Now to get it for $3, I see Cocteau Twins. I probably already have this on CD, but I don't think I've shown the CD in one of my record hauls before. So, yeah, we're cutting through these quick. The Creatures with Boomerang. So this is, I believe, what's his name? Budgie, the drummer of Susie and the Banshees, and Susie Sue herself from Susie and the Banshees. I've shown this on cassette, so I'm not going to get into great depth about this. This is an '89 release. I think there's some like island rhythms or tropical rhythms mixed in with the sort of dance, kind of what they're doing, kind of dance, sort of even rock kind of stuff that they were doing at the time. When I showed my Sarasota haul, when I went to a record show in Sarasota, I showed this, which I had on cassette at the time, which I sold, so I got it on CD. If I show these, I don't want to show them in too much totality. I wasn't going to show them at all, but they're just sitting here now. Speaking of Susie, we got Susie here with Manta Ray, 2007 release, and I think this has a bit of a dance-ish kind of vibe to it, from what I can remember, and still adding some world-esque rhythms into it, I believe. So I remember reading about this, but not being not remembering what they said they sound like specifically, but it's in the dance realm that Susie's doing. She's still kind of weird because she's weird, but yeah, Susie and the Banshees solo album Manta Ray. So pretty cool to have this. I'm going through these fast. These I just picked up over the weekend. These next two I picked up over the weekend. This is the band Seafield, and the album is Kike. It's on the Caroline label. I think they're on the Caroline label. This is, I believe, a British band, and it's adding elements of ambient music in dream pop, in synth, and indie pop, indie rock kind of thing. So I think they're an electronic band first and foremost, but there are dreamy elements in this as well. Seafield. And so, yeah, I'm really curious to hear this. This is on the Astralworks label, but I'm pretty sure they're on the Caroline Records. For the, I think, 2 releases they had, I'm pretty sure they're on one of those records was on Caroline, unless Astral Works is some sort of subsidiary of Caroline. I'm interested in always learning about these obscure bands that made records in the 90s. If you think, like, well, I don't know if you think, but they always seem to have a lot of artists make records in the 70s and then in the 60s. And, yeah, let me see, hold on. That seemed bent there. That's, I think, a little better. Yeah, I'll just leave it like that. Seems like they signed a bunch of bands. In the 90s, they did that too in a plum, I would say. So, yeah, I like hearing about these bands and reinvestigating. And when I see some band in early 90s, I'm always willing to take a chance on it from the alternative world, just to see what it sounds like. So the band is Sea Feel, SEE Feel, FEEL, Sea Feel. Not sea like in the sea, like jumping into a big water, not that kind of sea, the other kind of with your eyes, which I think I've made pretty obvious at this point. So I'm always curious to get stuff like that, just see what it sounds like. Their third album in his repertoire. This is Enigma's third album, and I'm gonna spoil it by fucking trying to say it. Le Roi est mort, vive le Roi. This is probably one of the few albums by Enigma I'm not familiar with. If I was to guess, it's still going to be dance music. It's going to have dance beats to like some sort of weird Gregorian chant or whatever. The second album had Return to Innocence on it. That had some like Native American chants on this. I'm not sure what this third one has, and I've heard it, but it's been so long I can't really remember it very well. But another album of Enigma, and I've been trying to buy all of them because I love them. I would love to see these first few Enigma records get put on vinyl, and if they are on vinyl, I'd love to see those on vinyl. So I'm happy to get them on CD, which is where I have most of my Enigma collection at. I think I got the first Enigma on cassette. I do. But I would love to get all the Enigma shit on cassette as well. So, Enigma, the third album, Enigma 3. And I'm not going to go through that title again. Okay, so the rest of the CDs I'm going to show you, these were all brand new CDs that were sealed. And they still are sealed. And this is Muddy Waters, live at Newport. This is 1960. It was $4. It's got 9 songs on it. I remember reading someplace that Muddy Waters played at Newport. I would think this would be pretty interesting. 2015 release off the Hallmark Music Entertainment. It's Hallmark Records, maybe? Not the cards. Not the Hallmark cards, but the records. And there, you can see the $4 on it. I was like, fuck it, I love Muddy Waters. So it's blues from the 60s. Yeah. It's kind of interesting that he played at Newport because that was a folk festival. And they did have blues acts there. But I always thought Muddy Waters, like, I don't know. I don't really see him being like the kind of blues that like that audience would seem to like. But who knows? Like, I mean, I definitely couldn't see like Howlin' Wolf there. But he might have played there too. I don't know. Badass guitar player from Texas, Mr. Freddie King, and this Freddie King Sings. I believe this is an early release on the early 60s release by Freddie King. Great blues player. And this also was on the Hallmark label. And this was also released in 2016. And it was $5. And I've not really gotten any Freddie King stuff. Or if I have had it, I don't have any presently. But it's blues from the 60s, so a little bit more rock, and I think there's a little bit more get-up in Freddie King's thing, like Freddie King's thing. Like there's a little bit more get-up in the music. The tempos might be a little bit more like up-tempo, from what I can remember, but don't quote me on that. I'm not a blues aficionado. I do like it, but I mean, for $5, for Christ's sakes. This I bought this weekend, and this one I'm taking a total chance on. When it came out, it kind of got shredded by critics and fans alike, but what the hell? More fans than anything, but this is Morbid Angel, and this is, God, what's this called? Um, Ilva Divum Insanus? I don't know. Illa Vita Insanus or something like that. 28,011 release off of Seasons of Mist. And there's obviously for people who like their death metal a little bit more pure. I think at this point, um, Morbid Angel had added elements of like uh, industrialness to them, and so there's like industrial music. I think there might be clearly on this album as well. But from what I heard, that Treya as Zagoroth or whatever his name is, there's a lot of hooks on this too. So I'm taking a total chance on this Morbid Angel. I know that it's probably not going to be their best stuff, and I've bought in later day Morbid Angel and not liked it, but for $6, I'm going to take that chance. You can see the $6 right there. Even though it looks like two, that's a six. I would have gotten it for $2 too. Last two are by the same artist, and these are really, really cool to get because I don't really have anything by this band in my collection discography. I don't have any. I used to have one of their albums, the album that had Defender on it, on my on cassette. But and I had their first album, Battle Hymns, which I love. But I'm talking about the mighty Manowar, and it's time to get some Manowar in this goddamn thing. This is a early '90s release called Triumph of Steel, and I love Manowar a lot. So early '90s, you still have Eric Adams on vocal. You have Joe DeMeo playing in the band still. So I think this has got a little bit more classical progressiveness to it. I'm guessing. I don't know 100%, but I do see like classical guitars in this. so, uh, but I think it still probably merges on having that power metal kind of aesthetic as well. So, Triumph of Steel Manowar, guys. This one was $8, and I picked up the other one because I was so excited to see Manowar, who I fucking love. Uh, I do. I like Manowar. I have no shame in that. And this one is a greatest hits compilation, I believe, The Hell of Steel by Manowar. So I'm really, really happy to get into Manowar's discography. And if they kept releasing these, this was $8 too, I would definitely snag more. I love Manowar. I love this shit. It's great that that store actually have released it. And this one, the Hell of Steel, is a compilation of albums I think were released in the late '80s into the late '80s, released albums into the like the two or three albums were released in the late '80s into the early '90s. Even stuff from Triumph of Steel is on this. So there's a little bit of overkill, but I don't mind. Yeah, this is going back. The earliest stuff is '87. It's got Fighting the World. Maybe that's the album I was thinking of, because Fighting the World had the wonderful, and I mean wonderful, my favorite song by Manowar, Defender, on there, which is on this greatest hits. So yeah, this is going back to, or yeah, '87 up to '92. So this is pretty cool compilation of albums that kind of came out that time, tracks from those different albums. So you can't go wrong with Manowar. It's probably the highlight for this for this show. Um, Now, I think I'm going to have time, but I might wait and do my artist spotlight. No, because that's towards the end of the show. So I'm going to do it now. So, artist spotlight, and I've done artists before where I kind of talked about artists and length, but never showed all their albums. This artist, you can find all his albums, and you can probably get his whole collection with an older material for like $20 or something. I mean, because they're really cheap usually. And I'm kind of kidding on that, depending on where you go. But the artist I'm talking about is Neil Diamond, and I feel like he's sort of, yes, he's sort of a joke in a way. I find a lot of his music nauseating too. But I also feel like there's a when you do a deep dive of his stuff, there's some richness to his music, I think, and I'm very careful by what I buy by him. Um, I'm not going to buy every album by him because I'm surely I'm going to be disappointed with some soft rock schmaltziness, adult contemporary schmaltziness. But definitely, I think there is enough in his catalog that you can kind of go through and kind of look at these records and be like, ah, yeah, that's pretty cool to have. So this one is Neil Diamond's "Touching You, Touching Me." This is a greatest hits. No, not a greatest hits. This is a studio album, but this is him covering a lot of songs. Everybody's Talking, Mr. Bojangles, Smoky Lady, Holy Holly. Him doing the mature song for when she wrote it, Both Sides Now by Joni Mitchell. Him covering that, and the singer sings this song, a song that he wrote. Ain't No Way, New York Boy, songs he wrote. And another weird one, a song he covers from the great Buffy Sainte-Marie, a song called Until It's Time for You to Go. So this was actually a studio album, but he's like, it's weird that he's becoming like, I mean, because Neil Diamond, if anything, was more a songwriter than he was singer. So him doing interpretations of other people's music seems kind of wonky to me. But whatever, I don't really care. I mean, it's fine. And like I said, this is a guy who started out in the Brill Building, not even Tin Pan Alley, but working his way up in the Brill Building, one of the legendary buildings in New York for songwriters, and in learning his craft throughout the time. Born in New York, I believe, New York City. And, and it's easy to kind of like, I think, dismiss him because he's sort of like dismissible. Like, I mean, when people are like kind of joking about him, and there's plenty of music snobs that do, they're kind of right, because some of his music to me, and it's always up to the ear of the person listening, but there's something about his music that can be pretty fucking like lame. So I'm gonna show you some of the albums I bought by him recently. I kind of went on a binge because there is one album in here I'm going to show you at the end that has a higher value than what I've seen from him. This is Moods too, another album by Neil Diamond. This one came out in 1972. Look at that fucking hair, guys. Look at that shirt. Pretty common record by him. Like I said, there's the collector in me that now, because of the way I had been collecting records since probably in my 30s, where I didn't mind buying budget albums. I always was a person that would go to the budget records in the store and pick up, even since my 20s, really. And so I bought a whole collection of albums. I had a whole shelf, and I must have had 500 records, and I never paid more than maybe $20 was for like one of them, but most of them were like records like this that I got at thrift stores and at a local record store, when records back then were 25 cents a piece, when records didn't have any values, and that would be in the 90s. This one is 1972, and it came out. Some of his big hits: Canta Libre, Porcupine Pod, High Rollin' Man's a good song on here. Song Sung Blue, The Cheesy Morning Side, and this great song in here called Captain Sunshine. It is a wonderful pop song. Definitely worth your time. Not a bad studio album by Neil Diamond at this point. Definitely forged his identity at this point and does no longer needs to cover other people's stuff. So I don't know why the record label had him do that. Maybe they didn't trust his material, but at this point he was a pretty capable songwriter on his own for him to do that. More sorry guys, but sorry about that. More Neil Diamond. This is an absolute classic album by him, and this is Hot August Night. Now, all these records I showed, I just picked up recently. I just kind of went on a deep dive because I was talking to the owner of the record store, and I was saying how great Neil Diamond is. And then I was like, well, do I really think he's great? I kind of do. So this is one of the best live albums I've heard, period, of artist. However, as I say that, there's only parts of this album I like a lot. And that is side two that's got Porcupine Pie, which we've talked about, in You're So Sweet, in Red Red Wine, and the fucking hilarious Soggy Pretzels, um, and The Grass Don't Pay No Mind, Shiloh, and The Wonderful Girl, You'll Be a Woman Soon. Now, the whole album's good. Side one has got Crunchy Granolas, Got Done Too Soon, Solitary Man, Cherry Cherry, and Sweet Caroline. Side three's got Play Me and Morningside and Canta Libre and Cracklin' Rosie. And they all got good stuff. Side four's got I Am I Said, Brothers Love's Traveling Salvation Show. So all good songs by Neil. He really does show you, like, on this album, not show you, but entertains you on this album that he was much more than just a passionate live performer, that he actually had a sense of humor. And this album has got a lot of fucking good humor in it. It's like one of my favorite live albums. I used to listen to this like pretty much non-stop in my 30s on the MCA label, a double live album. I had my own copy of this. I'm hoping somebody else will pick this up. Maybe because Neil released a new album that, and I will be talking about that shortly, which kind of sparked this Neil Diamond renaissance for me. But yeah, hot August night. All right, this I believe is a compilation album that came out in '75. This is in The Singer Sings His Song, and this has got a lot of Neil Diamond tracks on it. Songs that have been previously released on the Uni and MCA labels, and it's still on the MCA. So the MCA was just trying to milk Neil for all he was worth, maybe. I don't know. This has got Hurtin' You Don't Come Easy, which is a great song by him, and The Grass Don't Pay No Mind, Brooklyn Roads, and The Singer Sings His Song, Free Life, The Wonderful Stones. That's a good song by him. Definitely in his sort of like classical stringed kind of era where you could hear those soft classical strings accompanying his guitar in, yeah, I don't know. I don't think I've seen this album a lot. It's a compilation album, so I decided to get it. One of his most interesting records, this one is Beautiful Noise, another Neil Diamond gem. And this one came out in 70, when did this come out? 76 on the CBS label. And this is the album that was produced by Robbie Robertson in his, in my opinion, strangest album. I mean, all things considering, it's Neil Diamond. You're not going to get too strange. But it is got some, it's probably the most diverse album. There's elements of reggae on this. It's just an interesting record. Like the song Stargazer is kind of a weird song for him. So's Jungle Time. But the song Beautiful Noise is great. It's a great little pop ditty on here. This is a very diverse album for Neil. And like I said, maybe his strangest record. And this is like a record that you can find anywhere. So I'm showing you guys a lot of records you can find in a thrift store or in your local record store for nothing. And I think a lot of times these records get overlooked. If they're cheap, that must mean they're not good. Or if the artist is, you see so many of this, the assumption is it's $1 for a reason, because it doesn't have a lot of value, and because it doesn't have a lot of monetary value, that the listening value is going to be the same. And I think that's a huge mistake. I've been budget shopping for records for years and finding some hidden gems for like $1. So yeah, I don't agree with that at all. Neil Diamond, Love Songs. This one came out, I think, in 1981 on the MCA label. And this is the compilation of Neil's love songs, including Both Sides Now, which is a cover of Joni Mitchell. A great track on here called Last Thing on My Mind. Great little ballad by him on here. Husbands and Wives. The Great Hurting You Don't Come Easy. That's a good song on here, too. And he does a cover of Suzanne, Leonard Cohen. Now, my favorite cover of Suzanne is by Nina Simone, by Nina Simone, but I wouldn't mind hearing his cover, him doing like fucking covering Suzanne. Once again, this is going to be on the MCA label. No shocker there. So yeah, I guess because I made a run on these albums and they all but cost me maybe a few dollars for all these Neil Diamond albums. That was just like thinking to myself. Sorry, those are notebooks. But I was thinking to myself, all these Neil Diamond albums. Why don't you just do an artist spotlight and cover these? Even though these records are going to kind of common and ignored, why don't you cover them all and then just do this be almost like a spotlight? I said, fuck it, why not? And so this last record by him was probably I spent way more money on this than I would most Neil Diamond albums. And like I said, that's sort of the genius in Neil Diamond. Like, he's sort of like not taken seriously, but I like his music, always have. And this is his latest album, Wild at Heart. And this just came out a few weeks ago. And I was super happy that this came out. This is the third part of the trilogy of albums produced by Rick Rubin. This is not newly recorded material. This was material that was recorded when he was doing those other classic albums, Home Before Dark and The Wonderful 12 Songs, all produced by Rick Rubin too. This is that trilogy of those from those first two albums, the ending album. So unfortunately, no new material here, but Neil Diamond can't even perform live. He's not touring at this point. He's in his 80s, but it's still good to hear new music as far as like new music's being released by him. And yeah, this says 2024 that this came out, but I swear this just got released. And the song Wild at Heart is great. Talking It to Death is great. You're My Favorite Song is great. I spent like 20 some bucks on this, a little bit more than I really want to spend on a Neil Diamond album, but happy to have it. So there we go. So there is our artist spotlight. An underlooked artist, in my opinion, is Neil Diamond. If you want to go looking for bad stuff by him, go ahead. It's there, but there's plenty of good to go with the bad, I think. All right, I'm going to get into the regular albums now, and I'm going to just go try to mow through these as fast as possible. Lots of $3 albums. The high-end stuff is really not all that high-end. I just haven't had the money lately to buy records like I normally do. I mean, there's still quality $20 records in here, but a lot of these are a lot of these records I'm going to show you, at least the first 3 or 4 or 5, were all picked up at the flea market here in Bradenton, the Bradenton Flea Market. This one was sitting there for like $2, so I got it. It is Samson, and is it Delilah? Yeah. The opera by Saint-Saëns. So Saint-Saëns, Camille Saint-Saëns, is a French composer who is known for Danse Macabre, but that classical piece, Danse Macabre, which is usually used around Halloween because it is kind of a weird track. But this is like an opera he did, I believe, and it's very melancholic, and it's got a lot of movement to it too, and which is kind of weird. It almost plays off more like a symphony. It's taped up so I can't open it for you. But the only classical record I'll show you today, well, not the only one, I'll show you one later, but Samson and Delilah, pretty cool. Foxy with Hot Numbers. I want to say this is the second album by Foxy. I love this band. I think for a disco band, Foxy is really cool. I like this. I like this band a lot. I think the lead singer's name is Isla Desma, and it's this guy right here. When he left Foxy, he went on to form, and I told you this before in a previous video, the cheesy band Oxo, and they had a hit called Whirly Girl, and so that was more like on the pop vein of things. But this is disco, it's through and through, and I think that besides KC and the Sunshine Band, who I think is completely underappreciated in the disco world, let me see. In the disco world, I think Foxy is too. I think they're a really good band who could do really, really well funk disco numbers. If the disco just quieted it down a little bit, they could be a really good soul funk band, you know. And I'm pretty sure that the label had something to do with this. But there's a few good songs on here. Devil Boogie is great. Headhunter's fun. Um, Chicka Pom is really ridiculous. It's got like a his Spanish kind of beat to it, or Brazilian beat to it, or whatever. It's silly. Hot Number is silly. Give Me That Groove, it's a pretty cool song. Lady of the Streets is kind of little risque for Foxy, but they had a song called Get Off, so it's not like they couldn't get nasty if they didn't want to be. But my favorite track on here is a great ballad on here called Nobody Will Ever Take Me Away From You, which I think is a wonderful song on here. A great soul ballad on here. This band could funk, dance, disco, do it all. I think this is on the Dash label. I think they're a little bit better than what's given credit for. I do. I think they're a little bit better of a band than what they were given credit for. So I championed them before. I think I showed in a previous video the album Party Boys by them, which I think was the last album they made. And I bought it thinking it was going to be like a new wave band called Party Boys, and actually didn't realize it was an album by Foxy called Party Boys. And I like that album. It had like some new wave elements, some rock elements to it as well. But this is not in that. This is more soul funk disco, firmly planted in Chic 1978, I think, when it came out. 79 when it came out. This is good stuff. I'm a fan of Foxy. I'm big fan of them. This one I kind of want to go into detail about a little bit, because I find this one to be a real interesting record by this artist. And it's like, what happens when you're a 70s and early 80s sort of soft rock provocateur of sorts, and you are mid-deb 83 and 84, and you have to have synthesizers on your album, and you just don't. You're in no man's land, as Dan Fogelberg was on Windows and Walls. And so here it is, this guy trying to edge out a living, doing what he does, playing the kind of music he plays, and making an album, a very effective album, doing the same sort of style as before. Now, the album he made before this, what was it, The Age of Innocence, or The Innocent Age? I forget the name of the album. Spawned a bunch of big hits, Hard to Say, Leader of the Band, Run for the Roses, Same Old Lang Syne. Had some good deep tracks on there. I think he did a few duets with Emmylou Harris. A wonderful album. I think it was called The Innocence Age. And so this is his follow-up. He did a greatest hits in between those two that didn't do as well. Now, this is a really good album by him, and I would, it's almost like a dollar record. I could have just missed, but I figured this is worth talking about just because I feel like this is an interesting album by him that kind of gets overlooked. I think. There it is, 1984 release. It says. The big hit on here was actually a song that kind of goes against his grain, although he's had a few songs that are rockers hit the top 40. Well, Power Gold's sort of a rock song, his first top 40 hit, and of course Missing You, a little heavier than he normally hits. But the song Language of Love, I love that song as a kid, still love it to this day, being the big hit on here. The song Windows and Walls, the title track, is a great track on here too, and the wonderful, and it is worth the 8 minutes of your time. Tucson, Arizona. That song is fan-fucking-tastic. Great songwriting in that, great storytelling in that. A beautiful song by Dan Fogelberg, who can have a tendency, I feel like, to be almost progressive at times. With long songs, and that's the kind of thing I always thought was really interesting about him. He was like, not progressive rock like Yes, but progressive tendencies with longer songs, and almost like interesting arrangements on some of these long songs. And Tucson, Arizona is a great track by him. It's like his version of Hazard that Richard Marx did in the '90s, which was an incredible song by Richard Marx. Very mysterious. Tucson's got that same sort of thing. There's something kind of unsettling underneath it, and it's just wonderful. Um, yeah, and so this is the album, like I said, that he was stuck in a time parallel. Like, you can't do singer songwriter stuff anymore. This is 1984. Where's your synthesizers? And so this, I think by definition, really is kind of a true album for him, a true artist album for him. But yeah, one I like a lot. So Windows and Walls, Dan Fogelberg. This is a good album by him. And yes, I like Dan Fogelberg. I don't give a shit if people think he's lame or not. All right. This is Dave Edmunds. This is Dave Edmunds 7. This is an interesting album. Is it DQ7? Is that the name of this damn album? DE7. So this might be the 7th studio album by David Edmunds. And yeah, and this one was $2 too. I got it at the flea market. 1982 release. And I kind of like the fact he was mixing a little bit of new wave and a little bit of rockabilly towards his, like, you know, I'd say almost like just classic rock and roll sound. Uh, he had, to me, a bit of and which I say this in all seriousness, a bit of a bar room sound, like a bar rock, like you could see him playing at a bar, and I find that to be, I'm being complimentary of this. So I don't think I've ever showed a Dave Edmunds album. I loved Rockpile, the band he was in; they were great, and this is kind of not quite as good as Rockpile in my opinion. The Rockpile were fucking awesome, but it's really quite good. So David Edmunds with DE7. 1982 release. So it definitely has that 80s sound to it. And this is Nick Lowe and his cowboy outfit. This is 1984. This came out. Definitely interesting album by Nick Lowe. Escaping the grains of new wave and power pop while still kind of having some of that leftover sound, adding elements of country, adding elements of Tex-Mex into something pretty wonderful. I was listening to this and I was like, there's like Nick Lowe is like a genius when it comes to like arrangements and simplicity in a way. And what he's doing is not easy, but he's doing it in a way where it seems easy for him. And that's the trick, because I've been in bands. I've been not much of a musician, but enough of one. You have Paul Carrack in this singing too, from Mike and the Mechanics and his own solo career to Squeeze. He was in Squeeze for a hot second too. So yeah, this is some tasty stuff. I think Paul Carrack actually does backing vocals, so he's not even really doing. He's not even really doing um, like singing this. He might sing on a few songs. I don't know this album that well, but I want to give Nick Lowe some love. I do like him. I'm a bigger fan of like his '70s stuff, like Jesus is Cool or Pure Pop for Now People. Those albums are fucking wonderful. Labor of Love, I mean, is a terrific album. So, pretty cool. Nick Lowe. Nick Lowe. So in 1980, we're going to keep Spreer just moving, guys. We'll be done fairly soon here. In 1980, there were a lot of great bands playing in LA, and of course, LA had exploded with like the Germs and damn, the Alley Cats and I don't know. There's so many bands in LA. The Screamers, of course, were out by then. I don't know if the Screamers were around in the early '80s, but the two bands I feel like that kind of were like taking over the music scene from a point of view, not from because they're better, but from a point of view of taking like a idea of power pop or new wave and adding their own artistic merits to it and making it more diverse and complicated and interesting. And that was Jules and the Polar Bears, Jules Shear, and the second band was Gary Myrick and the Figures. And this is their solo record, and one of the best records from 1981. An incredible record, adding elements of just like straight up rock into new wave, into I would say art rock even a bit. This is wonderful. Like this is like a high recommend for me. Hear the song in here called "She's Moving in Stereos," uh, or "She Talks in Stereo." Sorry, I was thinking of that car song, "Moving in Stereo." She talks in stereo, and "She's So Teenage" is a fun song on here. But Gary Myrick went on to, I think he just did a lot of session music afterwards. But for a few years, him and his band, The Figures, made some really, really interesting new wave music. And it was so interesting because there was power pop elements in it. There was like basically college rock elements into it, even art rock elements into it. That it wasn't like you could just, oh, they're a new wave band. Although they would probably get labeled that, or they were just a power pop band, which I think they're probably more new wave than power pop. But wonderfully inventive and challenging band, and really, really good. I mean, I am super happy to get this for like the $2 I got it for. It is great. Okay, let's go back to the classical, guys. I just bought this over the weekend. This is Seiji Hazawa and the Chicago Symphony Orchestra conducting Leos Janáček's Sinfonietta, which I think was one of the last orchestral works he did, uh, composed back in 1926. And then the wonderful Lutosławski, a sort of understudy of Rimsky-Korsakov, and his piece Concerto for Orchestra. Both pretty cool pieces of classical music on the Angel label. Seiji Zawa was a Japanese, I believe, born uh, Japanese born, but moved to the States, and actually I think was conducting for multiple city orchestras, but he did do Chicago's orchestra, or Chicago's symphony orchestra, I should say, for quite some time as well. I believe he was there for a few years. This is on the Angel label. I've had Azawa stuff before, and yeah, I just, you know, decided to grab it. Last of the classical ones. I know it's boring for you guys. Soul Train, hits that made it happen. This is on the Adam V8 collection, which I've had songs on this label. You'll see in a second when I open this up. Hell, I'll show it to you right now. Adam 8. I think I had a Tommy James and the Shondells on the Adam 8 label, V8. Let's see if I can. Yeah, you can see it there. But this one I know I can sell. I bought it to sell. This one was $3. It was like a no-brainer to sell this one, so I did it. I did it. I did it. I did it. Yes, Soul Train, the hits that made it happen. Good stuff here. Fun stuff. This has got Curtis Mayfield on here, Dennis Coffey, Scorpio, which is a fucking awesome song. The Four Tops, Archie Bell and the Drells, Cornelius Brothers and Sister Rose, the song Treat Her Like a Lady. Everybody Plays the Fool, main ingredient. A lot of common songs on here. I Gotcha Joe Tex. You got Goodfoot, James Brown. Why Can't We Live Together? Great soul song by Timmy Thomas. Lots of good songs, and I think me and Mrs. Jones is on here too. A wonderful saucy song from the mid '70s. Great song by Billy Paul. So yeah, good stuff on here. This is cool. And there is Don Cornelius in all his glory, all his Afro glory right there. This was an interesting one. I bought this is one of those things, like, folks, the moral to the story is check the condition of the records. I was so enamored by the fact that I'd never seen this record by this band, I decided to get it. And this was a late '60s release by Eric Burdon and the Animals, and the album is Love Is. I was super intrigued by this. The albums themselves are not in great shape. I'm not going to really pull them out, but I might just pull this out to show you, because it's kind of cool how psychedelic it is. This is very psychedelic, very long, almost proggy, dare I say. album from him. Um, he was to me. I always thought the Animals were like more bluesy than psychedelic, but they definitely dabbled in psychedelia. He makes a few interesting covers on here. The most interesting song on here is a cover of Ike and Tina Turner's River Deep, Mountain High, but he also covers Ring of Fire, which I don't love at all by him, by Johnny Cash, the original performer, and To Love Somebody, which is okay by the Bee Gees. He covers on here. The song As the Years Go Passing By, I think that's another cover. That one's not bad either. Way more pronounced, longer songs, more psychedelic, and less of that earlier kind of rumbly bluesy stuff that they were doing. But interesting album by Eric Burdon and the Animals. Love is. Like, I just saw it and I was like, I haven't seen that album by them. I have not. Or if I have, I don't remember seeing it. So I decided to snag it. Double album for $3 on the MGA label. Yeah. Yeah, we're doing good on time. A few more $3 records here, and these are by the same band, and then we're going to get into like a few $5 records, and then on up and on up. This is Equinox by Sergio Mendes in Brazil '66. A pretty common record, for sure. I see this sometimes going for $10 and sometimes going for $1. So in between $3, I'll take it for sure. I'm not really familiar with listening to his stuff, but I think there's a samba kind of edge to it and going into easy listening. Certainly, it's not going to hurt me to buy this. I don't know if I'd sell it back for $3, which I paid for it, but the goddamn record is in great shape on the A&M label. So, and he helped form. It was Jerry Mann and Herb Alpert that helped form A&M Records. So, I believe it's Jerry Mann. And another Sergio Mendes record. This is In Brazilian Bag. Now, this one I'm not as familiar with. I've seen the Equinox one around. This one came out, I want to say, in '65, maybe. 65. And this one is a little bit more of a jazz trio with some easy listening. I mean, there's like female vocals on some of the songs. With the easy listening thing too, but definitely more like, to me, it's definitely got a samba feel, like a low end samba feel to it, not as big band accompanied stuff, kind of more intimate as a jazz trio. I think this is an infinitely more interesting record than Equinox, from what I had heard of Equinox. Like I said, I haven't listened to that record all the way through, but this, at least theatrically, is a better, like, more interesting to me on the Tower label. So, yeah, early Sergio Mendes. Why not buy his stuff for as cheap as it is? Why not? I've had this before. I don't know if I've shown this before. I maybe have not. And this is the problem when you start making as many videos as I have. It's like, oh fuck. Jack Bruce, Song for a Trailer, songs for a Tailor, 69 release. I've had this multiple times. I want to say I think I've shown this before, so I'm not going to go into depth about this. Chris Bedding plays on guitar on this. This is a kind of an interesting departure from that heavy fucking blues attack of Cream, and this having folk elements in it, even dare I say jazz elements in it. Still can get a little heavy, but definitely way more diverse a sound than the stuff he had done on Cream. And the interesting thing too is this album tries to really focus on him as a soloist, as a solo singer, and it's just kind of like, but he sucks. Well, I don't know about that he sucks, but this is in great shape. This is one of the albums I had on CD and I bought on the ACO label. This thing is in good shape. I got it on the ACO label, and then I got I didn't get it on the Echo label. It's on the Echo label. I got it on CD and I hated it. So and then I bought the CD years back or the vinyl years back for like $3 and liked it. And so now I have my other copy of this, which I think I've shown before, Songs of a Tailor. Okay, we're getting closer to the end, guys. We have Alphaville's second album, Afternoons in Utopia, a very challenging and interesting band that is more than just the synth dance pop stuff that you would think they would be. There is definitely more challenging ideas with this band. Much like some synth bands, I feel like that kind of get overlooked and have more of an art rock kind of credo. Kind of even, and surprisingly, Aha was like that. But I think Aha was more like progressive. But they were more like than what you would think the normal synth band would be. Catchy synth, uh, catchy synths and hooks, and then whatever the song is. But Alphaville were esoteric, I think, and made some really interesting albums. And this being their second one, and very dancey for sure, but still, I think I'm going to say this album has elements of, like I said, it has a progressive sort of art rock nature to it, and it's still doing the dancey thing though too. I mean, they were one of the more interesting bands. Not quite as inventive as like Shriekback, but not bad at all was Alphaville, and kind of overlooked for their adventurousness. The song on here, Jerusalem, is really interesting. Lady Bright is interesting. The Voyager. There's some really cool tracks on here, and of course the big hit "Dance with Me" is terrific. So it's still late in dance pop, but there's something else that this band is trying to offer that's really interesting. So, yeah, we're getting close to the end. This is interesting because this is his follow-up to what was at this point his most successful and critically acclaimed album, and to put him really on the map of almost being the Midwestern version of Bruce Springsteen. And this is John Cougar Mellencamp's "The Lonesome Jubilee." And this photo was actually a photo of a regular farmer that he took, I think, in a coffee shop or something like that, and they shot it, and like they just shot it, and the guy was cool with having it. So there's a realism to this. If I gatefold it like this, you don't really see too much more. On the inside, there's this. What's interesting about this album is that John takes the elements of the roots rock and sort of Midwestern rock, almost like, like I said, Springsteen, almost like Tom Petty Southern accents. Like he's taken those elements and he's expanding on them. So in this album, you have violin and accordion, I believe, is on this album. Is accordion on here? Yeah, accordion is on here. I was right. Mandolin, all these different instrumentation of like Appalachian folk and rural country folk and stuff like that, and mixing it with blues and some, and almost like a jug band thing too into his canon of rock and pop music, and it is really great. His best studio album, in my opinion, is this album. And I know he's not really taken serious by music snobs and those people, but I fuck those people. I'm tired of those people. I'm around them all the time, and I hear them dismiss like artists I like, and I like John Cougar, and I don't care if that makes me uncool. But this has got great songs on it. On Paper and Fire, check it out. The Wonderful Cherry Bomb, a really well constructed 3 to 4 minute pop song. It's wonderful. Deep tracks on here, Empty Hands, the fun Rudy Toot Toot, Hot Dogs and Hamburgers, and the wonderful Hard Times for an Honest Man. A very scathing song about the farmer, I believe. Hard Times for an Honest Man. Wonderful stuff. Wonderful stuff. Definitely worth picking up. This one was $5. We're getting into higher end stuff here. This one was 15, and I'm not going to say it right, but he's a Syrian artist named Omar Suleiman, and this is his album Shlan. And so I actually heard of him a while ago doing like kind of a merging of Middle Eastern music and electronic music, and it being kind of almost up tempo, very interesting sounding stuff. So it is world music with a dance beat. He is a certain style of singer, Debactic or Debak or something like that. I can't even say it right. That's a style of music from where he's at, but he merges it with like this, like I said, fucking awesome electronic dance music, and it's really really interesting. I didn't ever think I would find his shit on vinyl for like as cheap as I have, and it's on this awesome splattered vinyl too. So this one was $15. I curiosity got the best of me to get this. So Omar Suleiman with Shlan. Not sure what year this came out, but let's look at that vinyl one more time. I'm running late, but it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Look at that, guys. How awesome is that? All right. A few by the same band, and I was happy to find them. I thought I got a few more by the same band, and a few more by the same band, and we're almost done. This is Judas Priest, and this is, I believe, the Screaming for Vengeance Tour album, which is on picture disc. If I can get it out here, I can show it to you. Yeah, this is the Screaming for Vengeance picture disc album tour, the Screaming for Vengeance tour, which was actually released on vinyl and on probably cassette back in 1982. So that same year that they released the album Screaming for Vengeance, they released a tour, a live album of the tour. So that's what this is. It's really cool to get this picture disc. I mean, awesome. I think picture disc are kind of like whatever, but this is cool as hell. So yeah, I'm already running way late, guys. I wanted to be done with this early, but so much for that. Not gonna happen. And Judas Priest had Wings of Destiny. I bought both these Judas Priest from from the flea market here in Bradenton. There's a guy who sells records, and he said he had like 13 Judas Priest. He had 3. Not 13. But he's a great guy. His name's Bob, and he's a talker, but he's cool as hell. And yeah, so I got this off the Ovation label, so probably an older pressing, or maybe this is a reissue pressing. I don't know 100%. It doesn't look like it is a repressing at all. The second album by Judas Priest is an absolute fucking classic. Tyrant. Oh god. I could go on and on and on. Victim of Changes, The Ripper, Dreamer, Deceiver on here. Just awesome stuff. I think Genocide's on this, but Dreamer, Deceiver is great. Definitely there's elements of them mixing around with like sort of progressive tendencies, longer songs, especially Dreamer, Deceiver seems a little progressive, but still metal as fuck. And this album is my favorite album by Judas Priest, Sad Wings of Destiny. An absolute metal classic. Kind of a weird album, and I think this is their second album, which is really more of an EP. And the first album I've had on vinyl by Shonen Knife, and this is Yama no Achken, which is Yama no Achken, which is Yamo no Achen, which is the hell if I know what that means. Which is, I don't know what that means. But this came out in '84 originally, and I want to say this is the second record they made, but it's an EP, but it's considered their second album. Go figure, I don't know. And full of really kind of interesting indie pop silliness and goofiness and charm that made them so interesting. The song on here, Flying Jelly Attack, is great, but Cannibal Papaya is like a really weird song on here. Their most experimental song that I've heard. So this is lo-fi, indie, girl group kind of stuff. Not 60s girl group, just girl trio group singing together. Indie pop, I guess. Definitely goofy as hell. Not really punk in my estimation, but a lot of fun, very inviting, very charming. I kind of bought this on a whim, but Shonen Knife is good stuff. So can't go wrong with that one. The next two are by the same artist. We're going to get into 90s all the rest of the way, all 90s stuff. This is uh, Now I Got Worried, John Spencer Blues Explosion. The follow up to Orange, very much going back to the earlier albums by the John Spencer Blues Explosion. Noisy, erratic, still adding elements of like some of that hip hop stuff that they were doing, like experimenting with that on Orange, but really kind of sluggish and sloppy and loud. And the owner of Jerk Dog was telling me how great this record was. This was one I always passed on because I was always thinking it was kind of a sellout album because Orange was so popular, which is really stupid. It is not. It's a great album by John Spencer Blues Explosion. So now I got worried, and for time permitting, I got to go through these facts. Extra Wit, John Spencer Blues Explosion. This is the one of the earliest albums. I think their third studio album, but definitely going down a rabbit hole of a noise punk meets funk kind of thing, where they actually were defining their sound more than like a sloppy noise thing. Erratic and still, but bluesy, funky. I mean, just kind of more of a consistency with their sound on this album, with songs like History of Lies, Backslider's terrific, Afro's the big hit on here, Pant Leg is terrific, and the last song here is wonderful, The World of Sex. So I can tell you that I've been wanting to get this specific album, Extra Width, for years. I remember seeing this and thinking one day I'll get it, but I just can't afford it. It was a money thing in my mind that this was just some sort of expense or thing I couldn't get my hands on, but I certainly have them on it now. So Extra Width. I always thought it was like the unattainable John Spencer album in my mind. This one was sealed when I saw it, and I just bought it anyways. I was totally a whim. I was kind of looking through his records. This I have on cassette. Always had it on cassette, and was the album that came out between their biggest album and their most ambitious album. This is Pisces Iscariot by Smashing Pumpkins. This is sealed, and I got it for $25. It's a double album. Right here, and look how sealed it is. You can see the sealed disc right there. It's sealed. Yeah, so I haven't opened this yet. $25 is a steal for this. This was a lot of recordings that he was making around the time, even before Siamese Dream. But this was before Siamese Dream, or after Siamese Dream, and before Melancholy and Infinite Sadness. And I love this record. To me, it's like a studio album, and functions almost like one, even though it's a compilation of unreleased and unrecorded tracks and that stuff. And it's got some popular songs by him on here, like Frail Bedazzled, Plume, are some radio hits. Hello Kitty Cat, Obscured. I love Girl Named Sandals. That song is on here. That is a Eric Burdon in the Animals cover of an Eric Burdon in the Animals song. La Dolly Vita is great on here. It's a good stuff. Smashing Pumpkins. Fucking awesome to get this on fucking vinyl. I mean, this is like super. I feel like I'm getting spoiled now because it was like in the past there's no way I could get all these. I couldn't afford to get this stuff when I was younger. It was always a little more like if I get on CD or cassette, that was good enough back in the 90s. One or the two, but not vinyl. You know, because one, they weren't really pressing vinyl as much back then. I'm now thinking that vinyl is actually, some of the stuff is reasonable. This is the last album, and the first four that I needed by this band. This is Death Metal Juggernaut's Deicide, and this is Once Upon a Cross. Once Upon the Cross, the third album, and a real step up in production on this. Maybe potentially, and I you know, splitting hairs here, but this might be their best album. Right after Legion, but before Serpents of the Light. This is an absolutely terrific album. I just feel like the production on this is straight on. It's produced by Scott Burns. It was recorded at Moore Sound Studio, a place where in Tampa where a lot of the great legendary death metal records were recorded. I'm just happy to have this as part of my Deicide collection. I started buying Deicide stuff, and they're all like in the $30 range, and they've been in that range. They used to be $40 to $50. So once I started saw them going under 35, I was just picking them up left and right. And now I have Legion, Deicide, this Once Upon the Cross, which was a record store day release, I think not that long ago, and either last year or this year, it wasn't that long ago, and Serpents of the Light. So, Deicide, I fucking love Deicide, love some death metal, and that's it. I feel like I'm so exhausted doing this. But it was necessary to do this video because I don't see a new video on the periphery for at least a while. At least 2 or 3 weeks, maybe longer. I'm going to start spreading these out over time just because, whatever. But the time part of it, no, we'll see. But the time part of it is going to be the same. I'm not going to change the length on the videos. I feel like that's probably been the death knell for me. That and the fact I'm not showing you my shelves behind me of records like everyone likes to show off their collection. I'm not doing that because I don't have my records in shelves. I have them in boxes, so I'm not doing that. And so yeah, the next video update would be probably whatever I pick up in the next beginning of July maybe. But in July I will be doing a VHS Blu-ray update. So anything I pick up in June, I might go to Orlando Record Show. I might. If I do that, then there will be a record. That'll be an interesting one. But in July, not October, but that's end of June for the Orlando show. But in July, definitely, probably gonna do an VHS, DVD, Blu-ray update for sure. Those seem to do pretty well. But I'm Shane. I'm done. I am tired. I've been shooting for an hour and 16 minutes now, almost 17 minutes. Appreciate you guys sticking around for as long as you did. Hopefully you'll like that artist spotlight. Let me know what you thought of that. That's the first time I did it. I just bought a bunch of his shit on a whim. It's cheap, and Neil Diamond, I think, is a good artist. So, thank you guys. Bye. Oh, that was right in your face. Bye.